Okay, children, we were discussing the place of the setting. The narrator was driving his car out of the television training institute when the first movement opens. Next, we are moving to environment. It was getting dark. There was the glimpses of the red sky. It is getting dark in the evening, which is going to the depth of night. The impression of the narrator was one of nostalgia on his past. Hmm? He suffers from sorrow, being lost his childhood. That is his impression. Now we are moving to the plot overview. We are going to discuss the plot. Children, here I thought of doing the plot in detail because I do not know whether you have studied the novel thoroughly or not. Before going into themes, issues, messages, and techniques, you should have a thorough knowledge about the plot, about the plot of the narrative. So now I am going to discuss the plot in detail so that it will be very easy for you to answer questions in the answer questions from the novel. Children, the first subtitle movement is Sunset, where the narrator leaves the television training institute in the twilight on a day in March 1996. That is where the narrative begins. He is leaving the television training institute. He has just completed the last episode of Pitagam Karyo, his 12-hour television series, The Outsiders. Pitagam Karyo, The Outsiders, he has completed. It was shot, the last episode of Pitagam Karyo was actually shot below the high-level road opposite the Navinna railway station. On its way is the village of Egodavatta. On its way was the village of Egodavatta, where the narrator arrived at the age of 10. The narrator had arrived the village of Egodavatta at the age of 10. He stayed in Egodavatta over 2 decades. He had stayed in Egodavatta over 20 years. At Egodavatta, he had the dramatic and emotional background to write the narrative of Pitagam Karyo, to write the story of outsiders. Because Lamai, the village Egodavatta then was very beautiful and very classical village, typical village of Sri Lanka, which influenced the narrator to be a filmmaker, right? So he had that dramatic and emotional backdrop growing in his mind because of the beautiful environment that enriched his intellect. Next, his mind is, while he is now at the moment, the narrator is driving his car, leaving television training institute. Now, while driving, his mind is cross-cutting between past and present. His mind is moving between his childhood in Egodavatta and Depanama and present. Moving to the next slide. He is reminded of his childhood over 40 years back in time. His parents were middle-class people from Colombo suburbia. They used to live, the narrator's The narrator's father lived in Colombo area, in Greenland's Havelock Town. The narrator's family lived. His parents were middle class people. Because of a personal reason, they had settled down in a big house in Depanama. There had been a personal problem with the narrator's parents. So narrator's mother with parents, so they had to settle down in a big house in Depanama. They settled down in a big house because they were wealthy yet. The war disaster struck in the form of a financial implosion. Lamai, this is the period of Second World War. Second World War, the World War II started in 1939 and ended in 1945. Right? Because of this war, the economies of all the countries in the world were affected. So was Sri Lanka. This affect Sri Lankan economy, and there was the financial crisis. People lost their lives. People lost their jobs, and people became poor. Later they became poor, and after 2 years they shifted to a small house in the same vicinity. They used to live in a big house in Depanama for 2 years, but because they became poor, they had to shift to a small house in the same area, Depanama. So here you see poverty as a major theme. Poverty as a major theme. So poverty was created by that war disaster. In the year 1950, they have become poorer. Consequently, they are moving out of the area completely. Now they have become poorer. As a result, now they are moving out of the area completely. Let's see where they are going. Plot overview, second movement, Tony. Now we are moving to the second movement of the novel, titled Tony. Right? The first movement ended with the narrator's family moving to another area. Where are they going? They are leaving Depanama one evening. Children, they are leaving Depanama one evening. The second movement also begins in an evening, paving way to the deep darkness, which also foreshadows that the novel will come to an end in sorrow, separation, maybe of death. Right? There is another reason for the narrator's mother to leave home from Depanama in an evening. That is because they used to be rich, well-to-do people, affluent people in the area, Depanama. But little by little, with the loss of father's job, they became poor and poorer. So, they are ashamed of what happened to them. For being poor, they are ashamed. And the other thing is that they owe to many people around the area, or Nayavela. So they had to leave the area secretly. Maybe that's why mother has opted to leave the area in an evening. Mother hurries past the boutique at the junction of 4 mango trees, that is Ambagas Hatarahandiya. Mother hurries past the Ambagas Hatarahandiya because there was a boutique at which was the Mudalali, shopkeeper, lightening the petrol max oil lamp. So mother did not want to be explaining the things to that man, so she hurried past the boutique. Their pet dog Tony, the narrator's pet dog Tony, follows them all the way. Tony follows them all the way because Tony has been living with the narrator's family for 7 years up to now. So Tony is part and parcel of the family. Tony is a fixed element of the family. They are to take a bus at the old road to Vijayaram. Now they are at the old road to take a bus to Vijayaram. Now the narrator is carrying children. The narrator is carrying pangmalla, in which is onion and milchard rice, and mother is carrying the narrator's little sister. The narrator at the old road sits down at the side of Tony, and the narrator kissed Tony on the forehead. Tony responds by licking the cheeks of the narrator. Here we see the particular theme, sincere affection between the narrator and his pet dog Tony. Narrator may have kissed the forehead of Tony because he might have thought that he will have to leave Tony from here. We have to think so. Okay, all in all, Lamai, the bus comes at the old road. The bus comes without headlamps. The bus has no headlamps. It is getting dark. The bus comes without headlamps shows poor infrastructure in the country during that period, which can be taken as another theme of the novel. Then when the narrator and mother got into the bus from the back door, the Tony tries to get into the bus, but the conductor pushes back Tony's hand twice, saying chip chip. Then Tony kept looking at the dark boy inside the bus. The bus started and went away. Tony was left behind, and the boy is sorrowful, been leaving the pet. So the boy kept looking at the darkness beyond. Now the boy is inside the bus, kept looking at the darkness beyond. This darkness might bring out dark fate of Tony. This would foreshadow the dark fate of Tony. The narrator would not know what will happen to Tony. It's something dark. They reach their new home at Egodavatta, which is half a house they are going to share with Mr. Mendis's family. Their new village is Egodavatta, where they are going to settle down in a half house, sharing with Mr. Mendis's family. This they are going to settle in a half house also shows poverty affecting to their life. Actually, poverty affects to the relationships. Okay, we are moving to the next slide. Father had come early in a bullock cart carrying their belongings. He was sad and angry because they had left Tony behind. Now, narrator is sad not because he is carrying a bag full of rice, not because they have shifted from Deparnam, but because they have left Tony behind. The narrator is sorrowful. He is also angry because he knows that Tony has been living with them for 7 years up to now, and it is bad to have left Tony behind. You see his innocent, genuine feeling towards the other member of the family. Unlike the corrupt adults, the child is not yet corrupt, so he is genuine, he is innocent. To think that It is bad to have left Tony behind.